were you here when they were talking about he had this beautiful salmon cooked? And I guess were you here when they were talking? And he fell into the big ditch.
He's bringing it over to the restaurant.
The old cafe, and he fell right down into the bottom of that thing, and laugh. I think if he'd have killed himself, you couldn't help but laugh at him because it was. And here was this beautiful salmon. Well, there you go. Oh, and that's part of the camp they had, and it got to be up in the 40s below that winter.
And they're just in a tent.
Yeah.
It must have been so cold.
But they had it boards down in this part.
Right.
But they say as long as you keep the fire going.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
You probably just have to wear a jacket. Okay, and this is just back here, isn't it? Maybe not. Is that on?
Oh, I would think so. That was yeah, there's the plant house.
Yeah.
That's right. That's the end of those. Did you want to see any more?
Yeah.
I'll put this one back. Would you like
Actually,
to...
no, just bring it out here. I'm just gonna take some shots of it here.
Do you want to see the pictures of our 50th?
Okay, do you have any more old ones yet?
Yeah, I've got some more of those. Bringing back memories. Well, you know, it's 12.
I know.
Maybe we should just leave this for afternoon. Did you have a turkey sandwich?
Whatever. Get down.
She said, surely you're not going to move.
Very nice to see. We're both lots of it.
Well, you went yesterday, didn't you? We'll have to get on the all brand. your bun toasted like yesterday? Would you like your bun toasted?
Oh, I thought you were talking to Randy. Whatever you do.
Okay. Would you like your bun toasted, Randy?
No thanks, Graham.
No? I've moved the chair, so don't sit down.
I won't. Just point out who's who on there, Grandpa.
That's what, my mother. That's my dad. This is Maggie Hammond, Dad's sister. And that's Dad's sister, Auntie Minnie, was married to Dave Laheed. And that's Billy Cruz and his wife, Janet. 4 power plants we wore out.
4 power plants. When did you have the first electricity?
I gotta get this thing up. It rains on it after me taking it all out from under there.
You need me to give you a hand?
See, I had a
Then why don't you go and change them?
Okay. We're all ready.
how do you know the picture's any good?
We don't know. I guess what'll have to happen is I'll take it back home and take a look at it, and if it's not good enough, we'll have to come back and do it all over again.
Right, that's right.
Okay. What I like here maybe at the beginning is to outline your family history, and tell me a little bit about your mother and father and where they came from and their roots.
Who do you want to speak first?
Oh, you're doing this all.
You can go first there if you want, Graham.
Well, I was born in that.
What are you after, Grandpa?
You go up ahead with grandmother.
No, you're going to have to sit down through all this. You're going to have to suffer. That chair's more comfortable?
What are you doing?
You've got something in mind.
Oh, you want you.
Okay.
Two pictures there, both different. Her family,
This
different
is,
than the one you'd seen before.
okay, this is.
Yeah, that's the most authentic.
Okay. Just get a shot of this.
That's crazy, that camera.
It's,
He never turns it off or on.
no, it's steady. It
You must have an awful jumble of crap in there.
Sure. But the idea is you edit it afterwards, right?
Yeah,
Then you take the pieces that you want and you put them together, and it doesn't matter stuff that's the junk that's in between. You can just.
Was your hands in there waving around?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
That's life.
Okay, well, anyway, I was born in Manitoba, and the most important province in Canada. And anyway, I was the youngest of 12 children, and my parents came from Denmark, and my father was a butter maker, and when he arrived in, he arrived back east first, and they lived back there for 3 years.
Whereabouts? Do you know?
I can't remember just where they were. I think it was around Hamilton, though. And then he had the choice of taking 2 locations for a creamery. And one was in Winnipeg, and one was in where we settled eventually.
Where was that?
Pilot Mountain.
Pilot Mountain. In Sturtville.
Yeah, but it wasn't in the town itself.
No, we were in Sturtville, the district. We were about 7.5 miles from Pilot Mountain. And, but anyway, when he came, they had 3 children in Ontario. And then they came to Manitoba. And I think through all this, I think Mother was pregnant most of the time. She was sick as a dog coming over, due to the fact that she was pregnant, and they were on the water for 6 weeks. So, and I imagine he was hooping it up. I don't know. He was quite a playboy.
Was he?
And he didn't want to be a teacher, but that's what his parents wanted him to be. He wanted to be a sea captain, and he'd sneak away from school and go down and be at the on the shore all the time when these big boats came in. And that's the way he wanted to go. But anyway, he ended up being a teacher. And then when the war broke out, he was in training. And
Is that World War One?
yes, that was World War One, wasn't it?
No, you guys were here.
No. When Dad took training, what was
That'd be
it?
1917, around that time.
Oh, it would be before that.
Oh, it'd be another war.
They must have been training for something, and he was sent to Germany. And he took part of his military training there, and then they said that he had to join
Well,
the...
no, he was taking his training there for the dairy, the butter maker.
Oh, I see, okay. And then what?
Well, and then they told him that if he wanted to stay and practice in Germany, he had to become a German, and he told him no way. He went back to Denmark.
That was what the beginning of.
Why did he decide to come to Canada?
That was the new world then, and prospects looked very good over here. And I think that they had people promoting this country at that time.
Oh, yeah, they did. CPR did.
Bringing out new settlers, and that's how come he got out here. And so then he ended up in Manitoba, in Winnipeg, and he could have bought all the property on Portage Avenue at that time, and because it went for a song. And look at today what it is.
I know, it's big.
Yes.
Trees and big.
And anyway, then he went out. How we ended up out in Stewartville in a small creamery, I'll never know. But then that's where the rest of the family was born. And they lived in a log house in the bush there for I don't know how many years. That was before I was born. And then they eventually built the house that I was born in, and the whole works of us was sleeping in there, and there was quite
All
a
in one
number of
room?
us. And
Was it all in one room, or was it?
no, we had an upstairs, and the boys, seems to me the boys and the girls more or less had to sleep in the same room, and there wasn't much privacy until we got older, and then there had to be something arranged that we were separated. At that time, I didn't understand what was going on, but now I know. And so anyway, that's where I was born. But I had one brother pass away with black diphtheria. The doctor had been away on a case of that before he came to our place, and my brother had been out falling trees, and he'd cut his lip badly, and the doctor was going to come and stitch it, I guess, or do something with it. And my brother got that black diphtheria from him.
From
That
the doctor?
germ, yes. And that killed him. And at that time, you never heard of a court case against a doctor or anything. There was nothing ever done. And then I had one sister die from, they called it inflammation of the intestines, but it was appendicitis.
That's what they called it way back.
Way back then, and gradually
You
it's...
got that was fatal. Yeah. Before they started operating.
Yeah, and actually it's such a simple operation now.
That's right.
How about your mom and dad, Grandpa?
Was she not through you too?
Well, go ahead.
I'll try to get you both to talk on some
Yeah.
subjects.
She knows much about it I do.
I'm just starting.
I think he seems to know more about my parents than he does, but than I do, rather.
Your
You're
father
in
was a
Eastern
citizen of
Canada.
Canada?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Back
no,
when
shoot, Quebec, where he came from.
So you're secretly a Frenchman.
Oh, well, when early Canada was settled, they settled in a group, a bunch of Irishmen here,
Right.
There's a bunch of Scotch here, and they call them counties. Eh? And the English would be in another county, and then as they got to more, what would you call it, human, they started to mix it. But when they grew up, his dad died very young, and he was the oldest boy. So he took over as the dad. And I always claim that's one reason he was so hardy. And the only thing he could see was work, because that's all that saved the family. He was a dad, he wasn't a boy.
Yeah.
And then they finally, I don't know when they really moved, whether Grandma Cruz went with them or not. They went to Rainy River, Ontario. Him and Uncle Willie and another guy, what the heck was his name? Started a sawmill there. And they were there for quite a while. And then they started opening up land in Manitoba, and then they came out. And Mother was already there at Woodbay, Manitoba. Her mother came up there, and that was another case of the father dying young. And Grandma Campbell, she was the mainstay in that house. And she ran it, and the boys grew up, but she stayed on the farm even after the boys left. And I can just remember when she moved to Summerland, BC, one of the early settlers in Summerland. And they're supposed to have set a house as a, what do you call it, antique?
Heritage.
Under her name in Summerland. Edie said they done that.
It'd be interesting to stop by and take a
Yeah,
look
to
at that.
find it. Anyway, her and two girls, Auntie Lizzie and Auntie Nettie, went out to British Columbia. And there was 4 girls and 2 boys. And Auntie Nellie, she married John Brown. He was a preacher. Lived out in Floral District there out of Pilot Mountain. And Jim Campbell, he married Dad's sister. And I don't know how that went. He died young out in Alberta, up at Entwistle.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I know where it is.
yeah. And that's the last we ever heard of Auntie Clara. She was up there. And the 2 boys, she had 2 boys. They used to come out a bit. But the last 40, 50 years ago, the last we ever heard of them. I don't know what happened. They probably had families.
So your father was born in Canada, or did
Oh,
his
yeah.
parents immigrate?
Yeah.
How long ago did his parents immigrate from, or how far does that family go before?
It's a long time ago. Well, that kind of explains it, that picture.
Yeah.
He talks as though they came right from Ireland. I think he did too. He didn't
His
come
boy,
with that.
his boy came from Ireland, or
Pardon?
is a boy your father came from Ireland, or was it his
Well,
father? that came?
Dad's father came from Ireland. Yeah,
Okay.
I think he came with that migration. Not the one that went to the States, but the one they brought out here. It isn't, I never heard of him coming up from the States. As maybe before Dad's time. If he came up with that bunch, I don't know.
Okay.
And he, as I said before, he died. And then they came to Pilot Mound, and Dad married Mom at Woodbay. And then he got that farm in Pilot Mound, where we lived.
And you were born on that farm?
Yeah, the whole family. There was 2 died. I don't know just when that happened.
Okay. How many boys and how many girls?
There was 3 boys and 2 girls.
What year were you born?
1905.
And you, Grandma?
1910.
Quite a while ago. Just a turn of the century. Okay, you grew up in Pilot Mountain. What's your earliest memories of Pilot Mountain, growing up in that area?
In Pilot Mountain
Yeah,
or
as a
on the
kid.
farm?
On the farm, or just in that area? What do you
Oh,
remember as a
well,
little kid?
At that time, kids had to make their own entertainment. So my sister and I, we used to, the thrashing used to be the big excitement when all the men came around with the stoop teams and all this sort of thing. So, a lot of the time in the summer we'd play thrashing outfits. And also she'd be on the engine and I'd be on the separator. And we'd truck through the yard like this, and we'd play that. And then we used to play ball because our brothers were great ball players, and she would pitch and I'd backstop, and we'd take turns batting, and we'd imagine that all the fielders were out there. We had them all named, and so we played ball, and we played hide and go seek. And when the neighbors' kids all came over to our place, it seemed to be a great gathering place. So, and the boys of the district used to come there with my brothers, and they'd play ball in the evenings. And let's see, what else did we do? Oh, in the winter, we'd more or less gather in the around the big stove in the front room, and my dad and some other men, they'd be playing cards, and Mom, she'd be making a big lunch for them, and us kids would be crawling around the floor, and my two brothers that are a little older than Mary and I, they'd be on the one side, Mary and I'd be on the other, and we'd get on. When Dad would go to the school meetings, then Mother couldn't keep us under control, so we just carried on, and we'd get all the coats that we could find and line them up over the chairs, and we were making a fort. And then we'd pretend we were shooting through, and you had to make sure they didn't see where you were shooting from, because they'd get Mary and I every time. But it wasn't quite fair. They were bigger than we were, knew what they were doing. But we had fun. And then my sister, she used to come home from Winnipeg, and
Right.
and when Mary and I would misbehave, she'd take us and put us in the old kitchen cupboard, where they used to have great big high cupboards in the kitchens at that time, and that's where all the pots and pans and everything was kept in there. And she'd lock us in there, and that would scare us half to death. I think that's where part of my fear comes from. It's I seem to be afraid of
Close spaces?
yes, and I don't know. They used to tease me with a feather going across the floor too, that it was a mouse, and that frightened me half to death, and so I don't like mice. Anyway, that's
No women do like mice.
no.
How about you, Grandpa? What's your earliest memory of a family, a farm, or...
Not too much. The earliest memory I have was Mother was scrubbing the floor one time. And I can see myself yet yakking away at her, and I backed up and sat down in the scrub pail. And in those early days, they made boys wear dresses like girls. I guess it was so they could change it quicker or something. I don't know. That was the way they grew up at a certain age.
Oh, and I remember too that she made me do the dishes when I was just a kid, and I'd have to stand up on a box to reach into the dishpan. Well, that dishpan ended up on top of my head, and I guess if there's dishes in it, I don't know, but then there was a mess, so I guess I got bawled out over that.
Yeah, we were fooling around. It should have been working.
What kind of a town was Pilot Mound at that time? Just 100 people?
Well, tell
Oh,
about the old mound out on when it was on top of the mound.
they had it out on, there's a mound there, that mound. You read it here, or was it?
No, you were telling me a little bit
Well,
about
you read it in the What He Found. They said they should have made history of it in that Western Producer the other day.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, the town started up there. And it was really rich, and then the railway wouldn't come to hit it. So we had to move. Town had to move to the railway. And that was too bad, because it could have been a real picturesque town if it had stayed on the old mountain. That's the place I said was started by volcano was pushed up.
Yeah, yeah. Push up the
Okay,
rock.
okay.
But it was a very, in the old days, very progressive town. They had the 2 hotels, both booming. You see, so many, the labor force at that time was used on the farms.
Right.
Yeah, every farmer had a hired man, at least one, depending on the size of the farm. So along with their own family, why, and these guys, of course, all were, you know, what men were like all through ages. The first place they hit would be the hotel. Gets plastered.
So that'd be the liveliest place in town. Then,
And there was 2 of them, the Queen's Hotel and the Shore House. The Shore House is still going to this day. They came back and retrieved it about 40 years after, or maybe longer after it was built. It was a brick building. And it stood up over time. The roof must have been good too. It never leaked. Me and Claremont Laird, Charlie Harris, and then there was another one. I can't remember who the other was. I found a hole that you could get into. And we'd creep in through this hole and go into there and run around those rooms. And we used to gamble up in there with ourselves with marbles and whatnot. Nobody even knew we were in the place.
Never got caught, eh?
No.
It wasn't running as a hotel.
Oh, there was
then.
nothing going on. It was empty.
Just an abandoned old building, eh? What were the people like back then?
Well, they were generally good neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
People were, I don't know, they were more generous in their thinking and more cooperative. And I don't know. I can just, from stories my brother told, my dad would go to town on the buggy and he'd get looped at the hotel and the horse would bring him home, but he didn't know he was getting home, but lots of times he came home like that. It was, there he was a big playboy again. And what about the 2 guys that was fighting in they got drunk and they were fighting in the grain box or the sleigh box? Wasn't that McDonald and somebody else?
No. Somebody had it in for Uncle Jack Campbell when he was going home from town.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, he had a pair of Colts hitched up in the wagon. They were trying to beat the hell out of him, and he couldn't let the Colts. He only had 1 arm to fight with.
Oh.
But I never did get the down what do you call them? But I think the one you're thinking about is Oscar Lear. Fred was a little guy who lived in town. He used to come out to the farm. He pretty near lived there every weekend. As he got a little bigger, he used to go down. Oscar lived across the border, just in the States. A mean sucker, if you ever seen one. And a big guy, this Oscar Lear. There was a couple of Swedes there. He got them in about several different deals. They crooked work. And so they ganged up on him. And he had a pair of Colts and he was driving. Fred was with him. So he turned the lines over to Fred. Well, Fred couldn't hold that. They were practically running away, and Oscar turned around and he beat the hell out of them 2 guys. And later on in his life, he had a boy of his own. And he was going to town with his own boy.
Right.
And these 2 guys come out and murdered his dad right in front of the kid. They got even with him.
Pretty tragic, eh? Those guys are.
But he asked for it. He lived that way and he died that way.
Those guys go to jail?
Pardon?
Those guys go to jail, or you don't know what happened?
I don't remember.
Tell about the rum runners.
That's a long story.
Well, we got time for a long story.
Yeah, tell that one.
Well, they started not only around rum, at the same time, southern Manitoba was the highlight of the province as far as action was concerned. Bank robberies, because we were close to the border.
Right.
You see, they'd come up and down to the States and rob the bloody bank and go back. And it was getting so bad that and the police couldn't handle it. So they got the phone operating girls in on it. and they would monitor in their minds and put it down on paper, any strange conversation. And eventually that helped the police get onto these guys.
Really?
Yeah. Something like what you have nowadays.
You're tapping the phone.
Yeah, tapping the phone. But the girls didn't know what they told them a strange conversation. They'd notify the police about it. And there was a guy by the name of Mike Siren there. He was about 6'2", finest looking man I ever seen in my life, an Irishman. And my sister Margie, she was getting along with him pretty good there at the end. It looked like but I think Dad squashed that. He squashed two of her romances, which she should never have done.